You're standing in front of someone you've known for years. They smile, you smile back. You know exactly who they are, the context, the history, the face. And then their name disappears. Not gradually, not slowly, instantly. One moment it was there, somewhere inside you, filed and ready, and the next moment there is nothing. Just a strange, hollow space where a word used to live, and the harder you reach for it, the further it retreats. You can almost feel it. The shape of the name, the number of syllables, the first letter, hovering just out of reach like something seen at the edge of vision that vanishes the moment you turn to look directly at it. You smile wider. You buy yourself another half second, and your brain, somewhere deep inside, is doing something extraordinary. The question isn't why you forgot. The question is, why does your own mind hide information it already possesses? If you've ever forgotten someone's name, congratulations. Your brain was working exactly as evolution intended. Psychologists call it the tip of the tongue phenomenon, the state of knowing you know something while being temporarily unable to retrieve it. Studies suggest that educated adults experience this state on average, once or twice every week. Across a lifetime, most people will spend the equivalent of months standing at the edge of a memory they cannot quite reach. We call it forgetting. We call it getting older. We call it a bad memory. But what if none of those descriptions are even close to accurate? Most of us carry a quiet assumption about how memory works. We imagine the brain as a kind of sophisticated hard drive. An experience happens. It gets encoded. It sits in storage. When you need it, you retrieve it. Clean, linear, reliable. But this model is wrong in almost every important detail. Your memory is not a hard drive. It is not a filing cabinet. Current neuroscience proposes something far stranger and far more interesting. Memory is a living network, a vast, constantly shifting web of associations where nothing is stored in isolation and nothing is retrieved by location. Every memory you possess exists as a pattern of connections, neurons linked to other neurons, spread across different regions of the brain, held together, not by proximity but by relationship. When you remember something, you are not going to a specific place and retrieving a specific thing. You are activating a pattern, and sometimes, for reasons science is still unraveling, that pattern fails to fully activate. Not because the memory is gone, because the path leading to it has temporarily lost its signal. Your brain doesn't lose memories, it loses the road leading to them. In 1966, psychologists Roger Brown and David McNeill conducted one of the most elegant experiments in the history of memory research. They read definitions of rare words to participants and asked them to identify the target word. When participants couldn't retrieve the word but knew they were close, something remarkable emerged. They could often report the first letter, the number of syllables, words that sounded similar. Everything surrounding the target was fully accessible, but the target itself remained just beyond reach. What this revealed was that memory retrieval is not a single event. It is a search, moving through an associative network, narrowing toward a target that exists at the intersection of many different kinds of information. Name, sound, face, context, emotion, timing. When you fail to retrieve a name, it is rarely because any single element is missing. It is because the precise combination, the exact pattern of activation required to surface that specific word, has encountered interference somewhere along the route. Your brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. And yet forgetting one simple name may involve the failure of just a fraction of a second of coordinated activity across a tiny subset of those connections. Not a systems failure, a missed handshake between two parts of a network that almost always work perfectly. Every forgotten name is proof that memory is alive, not broken. Names are stored differently from faces. Faces activate perceptual memory, visual, holistic, rich with sensory information. A face carries texture, proportion, emotion. It arrives with a dense network of associations already attached. Names, by contrast, are purely arbitrary. There is nothing about the sound Richard that looks or feels like any particular person. Names must be learned as pure associations, thin threads connecting a specific sound to a specific face, without the sensory scaffolding that makes other memories durable. Research by cognitive neuroscientist Tim Valentine has consistently shown that proper names are among the most fragile categories of memory retrieval in the human brain. Not because they are unimportant, but because of how isolated they are. When that thread isn't regularly reinforced, when you don't say the name, don't hear it spoken, it quietly thins, until one day you're standing in front of someone you know perfectly well, and the thread is too faint to follow. What if the problem was never your memory, but the road you were asking it to take? Here is where the story turns. Trying harder almost always makes retrieval worse. When a wrong answer is activated during the search, when your brain surfaces Robert while you're reaching for Richard, the incorrect item actively suppresses the correct target. Robert is now blocking the road, and the harder you push, the more firmly Robert occupies the space where Richard should be. This is why the name appears 20 minutes later, unprompted, in the middle of an entirely different thought. Relaxing the search releases the block. The prefrontal cortex, no longer straining against itself, stops suppressing alternative pathways. And the correct pattern surfaces, not because you found it, but because you finally stopped standing in the way. Forgetting is not the opposite of memory. It is part of how memory survives. Maybe forgetting isn't the exception. Maybe remembering, that precise, effortless, instant retrieval we take for granted, is the real miracle. The psychologist Endel Tulving proposed what he called the principle of encoding specificity. The best retrieval cue is the one that most closely matches the conditions under which a memory was originally formed. If you met someone at a crowded party, you are more likely to retrieve their name in a social setting than when you encounter them alone on a quiet street. The noise, the energy, the context, these are not incidental. They are part of the address of the memory itself. When you're struggling to retrieve something, instead of pressing harder, recreate the context. Close your eyes. Place yourself back in the moment you first encountered it. The room, the light, the sounds nearby, the way you felt. Context is a key, and in many cases it is the only key that fits the lock. Sleep matters here too. During deep sleep, the hippocampus replays the day's experiences and transfers them into long-term storage. The associative threads that make retrieval possible are consolidated across the nights that follow. The architecture of memory is built at night, and emotion, always emotion, is one of the most powerful retrieval cues the brain possesses. Memories formed alongside strong feeling are encoded more deeply and are easier to surface. If you want to remember someone's name, find something about them that genuinely interests you, not as a technique, as an act of presence. Attention is the beginning of memory, and attention begins with a decision to actually care about what is in front of you. Return Now to the ceiling in Rome, 2 hands, 2 outstretched fingers, a gap between them that no brush stroke ever filled. In the first episode, we asked what passes between matter and consciousness. In the second, we discovered that memory is not a recording, but a reconstruction, rebuilt every time you reach for it. Today, the gap is the space between knowing and retrieving, between the memory that exists and the word that will not come, between who someone is to you and the arbitrary sound your brain filed under their face a long time ago. Perhaps memory was never designed to work like a hard drive. Perhaps it was always designed to work like a living landscape, a terrain that shifts with weather and season, where some paths are wide and bright, worn smooth by frequent use, and others have grown quiet, overgrown with the seasons of a life lived elsewhere. When you forget a name, you are not encountering a broken system. You are encountering the truth of what memory actually is. Not a vault, not a record, but a living thing that grows toward what matters and quietly releases what you no longer walk toward. The memory wasn't hiding from you. It was waiting for the right path. And perhaps every forgotten name carries a quiet reminder. Memory was never designed to preserve everything. It was designed to preserve what helps you become the person you are still becoming. Every neuron remembers. Every thought changes you. Every choice rewrites you. The gap is still there. The spark is still crossing. So become.